When you're sourcing physical products from China, then how can you make sure that you are really getting the maximum profitability, but at the same time also high quality and building a long-term relationship with the supplier? So this is what I'm going to be discussing in this video. So this is the second part of the video series on how to source physical products from China. So hit a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Okay, so today we are continuing what we where we left last time. So we are talking about sourcing, so making more money on purchasing. So we are actually talking about how to source physical products and mainly from China. So I mean, many of these things actually apply to no matter where you're sourcing from. So the location doesn't really matter. And I mean, we have sourced products from many different countries. So not only in China, but other parts of Asia. We have also sourced products from Europe and US as well. So it really depends on the product. For example, we have also been selling some supplements. So usually we source those products from the same country that we are actually selling those products. So just to make things more easier in terms of all the permits and licenses and those kind of things. But anyway, so things to remember before we start negotiating. So, I mean, first of all, I mean, it goes without saying, I mean, we want to have multiple samples. We don't want to rely on only the one sample that the supplier sends. But another key thing is that we really have to be skeptical. So we need to be cautious when we are ordering first time, when we are testing out the supplier, because I mean, first of all, we don't want to get scammed, and not even talking about getting scam. I mean, we don't want to have any kind of misunderstandings. We don't want to have any kind of issues when it comes to the products, such as quality issues or in terms of packaging, or I mean, sometimes it has happened to us, like the products we actually ordered, there's some brochures with some Chinese text there. And then even funnier was that there was like text. I mean, it was English, but it was written in Chinese way. So it was actually really bad customer experience. So we actually want to avoid stuff like that. So consolidation of these samples actually helps to save money. So we want to examine these samples carefully and then pick the supplier that we want to be collaborating with. And we really want to have, I mean, this pretty much applies to every time. And it's not the one you're just starting out for the product. I mean, even to this day, we are always having options for the supplier. I mean, we do not want to depend on only one product when it comes to the one supplier when it comes to the product. We want to have the flexibility that, okay, if something happens with the one supplier, that we have the flexibility just to order the goods from some place else. So we always want to cover our backs in that sense. And I mean, sometimes it happens that, okay, there's just so long queues with this one supplier, but I mean, it's not a big deal. I mean, we can use another supplier, and we always want to have this flexibility. And we have had some pretty funny cases. And one time it happened that we had hard time in getting hold of this supplier. I mean, the team thought that it was a real supplier. I mean, it wasn't any factory. I mean, it was just a like smaller business. And what had happened that the owner of the business had been arrested. So they couldn't reach the owner because, I mean, he spent some time in jail. So that was pretty funny experience. But yeah, I mean, we always want to have enough buffer. So that's why we need to have like multipliers that, okay, whatever we need to pay, we need to have enough room for profit in terms of surprises. So, I mean, we want to have contracts, we want to consider the logistics and the associated costs for air, or C. Let's say if you are shipping, products that are not don't have the best profitability in terms of shipping by air, then still we need to consider air, because we do not want to run out of stock, but we don't want to order too much inventory either. So in many cases, that even though we are mostly selling the product by sea, we are shipping with the product mainly by sea, then there's still at times that, okay, we are actually running out of stock, so let's just ship quickly by air in order to not run out of stock. So that actually does happen quite well, not frequently, but anyway, it happens sometimes. And also when you consider that you are like selling your brand, selling your Amazon FBA business, then in many times, these are something, if it's like surprise, or if it's like one-time expense, or if it's something that typically the buyer of the brand doesn't need to be paying this shipping cost that was paid on this like one-time period, then that can be added to these add backs, meaning that it doesn't hurt our valuation of the business. Like if there's sometimes we need to ship by air just in order not to run out of stock. So in that sense, it's not such a like big deal in terms of the valuation of the business. But what do we negotiate with the supplier? Obviously prices, but then also payment terms. Especially like after we have done, okay, things are a bit different with the first order, because either, the trust, the relationship is not there yet. So we need to consider that what is like a good situation for both of us. So this is the first order from the supplier gets from us. So they don't necessarily give us the flexibility that we want to have, but still, we should try to go beyond that, just doing that regular like 30-70 deal. And like we talked last time, that we need to remember there's two stages of sourcing. So if you are still, and it's always by product. It's always per product. So the first stage is the product validation, which means that we are not going to spend excessive amounts of time in negotiating or like spending that too much time on like optimizing things, because that is not the time to optimize. So once we have a product idea, the point is to get the first sale as quickly as possible. Get the idea to the marketplace, to really test the idea with real paying customers, so to really validate the product opportunities. So if it happens that, actually it usually happens that we pay like a bit too much for the product and shipping and that kind of stuff. Who cares? The point of the first batch is not to make profit. The point of the first batch is to simply like gather data and validate the product opportunity. Then second stage is where we actually do things in order to increase profitability. So that applies to, of course, what we do in the Amazon marketplace, meaning having higher prices than competitors if we really have a good offer. But it also applies to what we do when we actually purchase the stock and sourcing. Yeah, minimum order quantity, that goes without saying. But then lead time, this means that, okay, once we place the order, like how long does it take that they are actually ready for the quality inspection? We should always do quality inspection for every single batch that leaves the supplier. And then, when they are actually ready to ship the product. Then we also need to talk about that, okay, what happens when there's quality inspections and the quality inspector actually find issues with the product. So what happens then? And then doing these different kind of contracts. And I mean, on the contracts, we also talk about like, okay, what about defects? What about when we get like, actually not only defects, but when we get like returns and refunds from customers. So the customers are returning the products for some reason. I mean, not just because they want to, but there's something with the product, and that is not limited only to defects. So what happens in those cases? So that's what we want to add to the contract. Then how do we negotiate? I mean, we just pretty much like choose the optimal target price negotiation. I mean, that's the price that we go after, and we always discuss the quality of the product. And I mean, then this goes without saying that we need to present ourselves like a real business. So we are not just some random person that just is starting to try out selling on Amazon, which actually might be the case, but we don't want to seem that way, because I mean, why would any supplier really take us seriously if we are just saying that, yeah, I mean, we are just trying out, and maybe this will be our only order we do with you? No, I mean, we actually want to present ourselves in sense that we are a like real business, and I mean, we have already plans on doing like longer order. I mean, working for long term. We want to find suppliers that we can trust, and we are able to work with them for long term. And yeah, I mean, never indicate that there's a limited budget or just starting out, that because then I mean, especially if you're just doing it like the first time, then I mean, the suppliers are not going to take us seriously. And I mean, definitely go have calls with the suppliers. And I mean, I remember that like when we started, we didn't really do actually. Yeah, I remember. I mean, I did do like phone calls with the suppliers, with the first suppliers we had, but not with all of them. And with some of them, we just agreed everything on like on chat and email. And that's definitely not the best way to do this, because in the beginning, I mean, we did mistakes, and which pretty much led to that. I mean, we pretty much like overpaid for things that there was really no necessary to do that. And also, I mean, when you talk over the phone, you also like establish more professional relationship and so on. But yeah, I mean, like I said, that we never want to be dependent on only on one supplier. So that's why we want to have flexibility in terms of choosing another suppliers in case something goes wrong. And not only that, I mean, we actually want to beat the suppliers pretty much like against each other, saying that yeah, I mean, we got this kind of offer from another supplier and so on. But be careful here not to really do this too aggressively, because what will happen is that, I mean, they will give the lowest price just to get the deal, but I mean, in return they are going to cut corners, for example, with quality, and we are going to be ending up with angry customers. So 1-star reviews are never good when it comes to selling on Amazon. Yeah. Then, I mean, we actually, once we start doing this more and we pretty much like get the hang of this, and we can use, I mean, and one thing is that we want to get the quotes in RMB instead of US dollars. And okay, how to respond to the quotes. you get. Well, I mean, we want to give this impression that, wow, ouch. I mean, that's a hell really like high price. I mean, we are surprised by this high price. I mean, please explain. It's a lot higher than we were expecting. So help me comprehend the cost drivers. Is the raw materials, labor, machinery, tooling, or what is actually driving the cost up? Because I mean, this is much higher cost than we were expecting for this amount of products and so on. So this also, I mean, when we ask this question that, I mean, what is the driver of this cost? I mean, that gives us information that we can then use with the other suppliers. Because we can ask about, hey, what about like raw materials or labor and those kind of things. So we actually gain information that we can use to really get better deals from or the better deal, like discussions with the competitors. And actually, I remember like one of the first products that we had. I mean, we were doing like different kinds of bags and stuff like that, and I mean, what we actually learned from the supplier, I mean, and the thing is that both Victor and I mean, we had zero experience in selling any bags or manufacturing bags or any, I mean, that we had zero knowledge in that area. And oh boy, I mean, the amount of information that we actually learned from the supplier. I mean, they were teaching us about, he was teaching us about different kind of zippers and how to really do these like better stitching and how to do like better quality. And I mean, and how to really have this kind of like smooth things on that bag. So, I mean, it was pretty like that one supplier alone gave us like really good training in this in this niche. So, and then the thing is that they're always, I mean, when suppliers are, I mean, like exporting these goods, they are able to get some like tax returns, and we can actually use that to our advantage. So, I mean, exporting suppliers can reclaim, I mean, it can be pretty much be anything up to like 70%. So we can actually mention that thing to get some leverage. I mean, we should be all about long term. I mean, always when you talk with supplier, I mean, it's really important that we talk about that. Okay, we want to have a long term relationship, and so on. I mean, that's really important. One thing that I really like we have talked about before, that it's much easier to start selling something that is your own interest and passion, because I mean, you know about you already have some information and expertise regarding these products that you're starting to sell. And then I mean, you can actually get additional information from the supplier, like different kind of product components and what's the corresponding cost of each component and so on. So that's really a big value. And then we should always I mean, get different prices. Okay, there's X works and then FOB. So these are pretty much like different kinds of things regarding the deals. That okay, does it include that we pick up the goods from the factory or something else? So this is just that we want to get really the price that okay, what is this really the price of these items and so on. And this is important question that well, actually it kind of depends on the product, but if it's something that is assembled and has some different parts, then I mean, it's important to ask that, okay, what happens when customers like lose or break one part of it? I mean, that should be covered by the warranty, right? And it does actually happen that for some of the products, like they are pretty much assembled, so customer assembles it, and I mean, it happens well, it not often, but sometimes, that the package does not have what the customer buys. I mean, for some reason, one part is left out. So that's all. Those are all the things that we should get into those contracts with the suppliers. And I mean, always talk about this long-term collaboration and relationship. So in Asian culture and in Chinese culture as well, I mean, relationship really matters. So we want to establish like good relationships. So it really helps when we talk, when we use words like us, we, and weekend and long-term collaboration and relationship. Yeah. This next thing is, I mean, it's based on what I mentioned before, that we want to have many different options for suppliers. So, and we are not afraid of leaving the table, meaning say that, okay, I mean, we cannot simply accept these terms, and unfortunately we are not able to do like business with you with these under these circumstances. So we always, I mean, that's really the best position for any kind of negotiation. I mean, and it applies to pretty much anything. I mean, okay, when we're dealing with employees or whatever, I mean, we need to be, when we are in a position where we can just walk away, we have the upper hand, we have the best leverage in that case. Yeah, so we want to have this some kind of guarantee in terms of that the quality matches something that matches our expectation. And quality is always subjective in China, so that's something that we need to keep in mind. So when we say high quality, then it really means nothing in China, because they will ask that, okay, high quality for which purpose? And then sometimes, okay, you might be, I don't know. So that's why we need to really know the product and know what we are ordering and so on. And actually, Finland is a very good example of this subjective quality as well, because I mean, after the war with Russia, I mean, like part of those terms in ending the war is that, I mean, Finland, I mean, had to manufacture all sorts of goods for Russia. So, I mean, they had to, or for the Soviet Union. So that was actually part of the deal. And that's kind of the starting point for this relationship between, I mean, exporting these items to Soviet Union. And for a long time, I mean, that was actually, that was also the time that these factories were set up in Finland. So that kind of was the first like main market and main customer for Finnish exporting. So what actually happened was that, I mean, when the world kind of opened up for Finland, so when Finland actually started exporting goods to like outside of like Soviet Union, I mean, to different countries of West, then what actually happened is that the quality that was tolerable in the Soviet Union was not acceptable in other like Western countries. So that was like a real shock for this like Finnish exporting. So that was really like eye-awakening moment that, okay, I mean, we really need to step up in terms of like upping, I mean, doing better quality and so on. So quality is really subjective, so that's what we have to keep in mind. So we actually want to develop a quality control checklist. So what should it contain, who should receive it? And that's really the reason, once we have done this perfect product blueprint, then we already have a lot of information ready. So we can actually utilize the document that we have made also for this purpose in doing the quality inspection. And there are different kinds of inspections that can be done, and one of those is actually this factory audit as well, meaning that, I mean, we have done it many times. We just send some, I mean, we use the same company that is doing the quality inspections, that they actually just go to the location of the factory just to check things out, and usually it's a like surprise visit just to make sure that everything is up as expected. And then they also check like raw materials and stuff like that. Then, for example, with shipping, we really have to make sure that the labels are in such condition that they can be scanned. Because once our shipment enters Amazon warehouses, the FBA warehouses, like if Amazon cannot scan it, then it might actually happen that they will reject the whole shipment, or not the whole shipment, but they will actually give a penalty for that. So we have really need to be certain that all is good. All right, cool. So locate suppliers on local websites and networks, then do diligence and background checks, and do on-site factory inspections, and that is simply a must. And never forget to do it for any batch, or it might be that it's gonna come with a like high price. So I mean, sometimes we have skipped this inspection for some batches, and sometimes it has been fine, but usually we had to pay a price. So I mean, we have really learned our lesson, so we inspect every single batch, because if you get a 1-star review on Amazon, then poof, it's going to make things more difficult. Then I mean, it's also possible, like we have visited China, and we also like me have met different like personnel of the factories. So that's definitely one thing that it's possible to do. But I mean, during COVID time, it's pretty inconvenient going to China, so it's not really an option right now. But yeah, I mean, we want to request multiple product samples. We want to examine the product quality, compare prices, go through like minimum order quantity, delivery time, ensure supplier can actually produce high quality products. And we always want to be skeptical. I mean, because especially, I mean, sometimes, or in the beginning, it's fine to use like Alibaba or sites like this, but we have to remember that like no big factory is on Alibaba. All of them are trade agents or like really small businesses. So we are going to be there's going to be a lot of scammers as well. So we actually mostly use like 1688 and other options. But yeah, then activation formula. I mean, describe and validate this product specification, negotiate the prices and terms of payment and lead times, and really provide this quality assurance checklist. And then, especially, I mean, if you're using our own molds or stuff like that, then I mean, we definitely need to consider the protecting our intellectual property. But I mean, even if you are not using any molds of our own, I mean, it still applies to our brands and trademarks and stuff like this. So trademarks, I mean, when you register a trademark in the US, I mean, it really is only valid in US. It's not really valid in Europe or anywhere else. So that's why it's pretty much we have to like register the trademarks in each country. So that also means China. And there's different kind of protection. There's, first of all, I mean, using the trademark or using the IP, but then there's also like preventing the IP from even being manufactured, which means that, okay, no other supplier can manufacture this product using, using the intellectual property. Yeah, then we go to production, and if you're just doing like one batch, then it's not really, usually it goes that, okay, we just do one quality inspection and it happens before we ship the product out of the supplier. But what we do is that, especially like when we are doing a like bigger amount of units, then we are going to be doing numerous of these quality inspections. And what is also required is also like doing this. It really depends on the product, but for example, some of our products had to be sent to this like laboratories for testing, that it doesn't have certain like any toxic elements and that kind of stuff. So that's like, if you're selling product that has any kind of these features, then it's especially important that all the documentation is in good shape. Then I know, like, for some reason some sellers are doing it so that they have like kind of like warehouse either in China, and sometimes they actually do it in US, that they order the goods from like China supplier. It arrives to this like pre-shipping to a different warehouse where they do different labeling and that kind of stuff. And in my opinion, that doesn't make any sense, because the products have to be inspected before they leave the supplier. Because let's say that they find some issues. Okay, let's say that, okay, this is a really bad quality batch. So 20% of the items are like defecting. We cannot use 20%. Okay, even if the supplier is saying that, no, don't worry, that we will cover this. We will give you new items. Well, okay, fine. This has to go to the Amazon right now, and when do we actually get these replacement units? And it might be that, oh yeah, you will receive it in 1 month or so. Like, boom. It just makes things more complicated. So it's much easier when we do the inspection directly at the supplier's place before any shipment takes place. So that also means that, even though we have some different places, locations in China, no, we still do the inspections mainly at the supplier before even moving the items to any other place, because that's the best time to fix. That's the easiest time to fix these issues. Otherwise, we are going to be facing delays. And yeah, freight forwarders. So same thing applies there. Getting really many of these like quotes, and we don't really have any loyalty towards freight forwarders. So we just use the ones that we give the best pricing. So that's why we have a lot of these different freight forwarders that we pretty much, and it's great. Like some of them, actually most of them, can offer you kind of like free warehouse at the same time. If we don't really store it for like longer periods, like 6 months. So that means that we don't need to send everything directly to Amazon, and we can actually store the goods, for example, in the target market, for example, in US and UK. Yeah, usually we have to pay for the items before they actually ship it, but this is really up to negotiation. So we have had many cases where the supplier has shipped already everything, and we have already started to selling them, and we have only paid for like 10% of the total order. But you can also only get these kind of deals when you build the relationship with the supplier. And when you really emphasize the long-term relationship, and when it's really a like healthy relationship both ways. Yes. So let's do some recap. So, I mean, even if we are beginner, we still must really build this trust. We want the suppliers to take us seriously. We don't, even if this is our first order. I mean, we don't want to be too obvious, and we don't want. I mean, we are not lying, but we are still not mm, are not giving this impression that we are really complete rookie and newbie. And yeah, I mean, like we talked last time, like we should really use this WeChat. So that's, I mean, that's everyone in China has WeChat, so it's just like easiest to use that one. And it's all about long term. Like we really want to emphasize the long term relationship. And the funny thing is that I mean, if you're actually doing something different than what the supplier has, for example, when they're sending some samples or whatever, what they already have. So if you want to do some changes, when we want to have some kind of any changes, then I mean, it's just easiest way to achieve it that we actually have a sample of what we are looking for. So it really depends on the product, but I mean, if it's something, some like new product that is not in the marketplace yet, so meaning that we are doing improvements on what the market already has, then I mean, really the easiest way is just to, I mean, we build some prototype, so we actually provide the sample to the supplier ourselves, and then we just tell them, okay, this is what we want. So you can see the size, you can see the I mean, you can see the colors, you can see pretty much everything. So we want like one-to-one copy of this sample here. Yeah, so in communications, especially with different cultures, so many things can go wrong. So it's really important that we have like crystal clear clarity. And I mean, I have provided like a lot of different questions here. So actually make use of these questions to really show also your so that you're serious and kind of like demonstrate your like expertise on this matter as well. We don't want to be too, I mean, asking the minimum order quantity. I mean, that really is kind of like, it can be like this red flag for the suppliers, because it kind of shows that, okay, I mean, this guy here, this guy or girl, I mean, they are immediately asking the minimum order quantity. So seems like they have really limited budget, and this doesn't seem like long-term long-term partnership. So this question from Omistaja. Hello, Omistaja. So what are other options than 1688 when you search for products? Well, I mean, we went through those last time, so you can actually check from the part 1. But yeah, it's pretty much like different kinds of websites. So you can just check out the links from the slides of the part 1. Yes, so I mean, Manikanta is asking, for selling food products, what approvals are required in US? Easiest way to sell some food products in US is to source them directly from US. So because typically they're going to be having already the things that are required. So I mean, there are just many different things, and it really depends also what type of food product. So is it some kind of supplement? Is it some kind of like different kind of vitamins or different kind of pills? So there is no one general rule, but it really depends on the product. Miko is asking in the master sheet where we collect product opportunities, there is a column for MOQ. How to ask that properly if it's a red flag? Well, what I mean is that if that's your first question, I mean, you just put yourself in the shoes of the supplier. If you see, I mean, you are all the time getting these requests from different people. So how do you actually know who's serious and who is just a tire kicker? Who is someone who's just maybe your competitor wants to check your prices, or maybe just someone who is asking for prices for no good reason, meaning that they will never ever order from us. So if you just think it from that perspective, then I mean, if someone is asking, I mean, yeah, I mean, absolutely, we need to know the minimum order quantity, but it's just how do we actually, when do we actually ask it? So it's not the first question. We really like emphasize the relationship there. I mean, long term, we want to be ordering goods for long term. And yeah, we talked about the different locations before. So Guangzhou, Yiwu, Shenzhen, that's pretty the common ones for most of us. And yeah, I mean, always introduce yourself as a company. We want to be really be seen as professionals and businesses. We don't want to be seen as a tire kicker. So someone who is not serious or is not going to order more than like a few batches. Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, once our business is established, then we definitely need to have like a local sourcing agent. And I can tell you that once we hired like person from China, I mean, poof, our profits went up like overnight because she was able to get prices that we couldn't even dream of. If you like this topic, then hit a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. And we actually have a closed secret group where we are discussing all things related with this. So if you want to get access to this group, if you want to get more material regarding this topic, then just comment group and we will reach out to you to add you to the group. See you at the group.